guys, and welcome to the Watchtower Watch Reviews with your host DK. This is sort of a thank you video as well to everyone who used my AliExpress links in the 11/11 sale. I can see that the huge amount of you did. Means the world to me. Thank you so much for that. I don't have a review as such this week. I did something a little bit different. So I've always been kind of curious as to how easy it is to build your own watch. And anyone who's watched my channel before will know I've got a bit of a love affair with Vostoks. So I thought, what better way to celebrate not only a great AliExpress sale, but also breaking through 200, 250, and potentially by the time you see this 300 subscribers, than to show you guys how I got on building my own watch. Not going to mess about. Some of the footage has been lost, unfortunately, due to my phone having no memory left. But whatever I have, I'm going to show you guys, and I'm going to show you the end result as well, so you can see what it turned out like. Let's get to it. As usual, guys, if you're not liked and subscribed already, give it a whack there for me now. We're going to have a look at the tools I have. So we have the red little thing is a hand pusher. The black squeezy thing is an air compressor. You've got a hand puller. You've got bracelets. You've got the bezel springs for the Vostok. A movement, the 2416. The dial itself. You've got screwdrivers. You've got a case back remover. And just general assortment of different tools I picked up on eBay and also on AliExpress. If that seems like I ran through it a bit quickly, don't worry, I'll put a link down below to everything I use. There are affiliate links as per usual. If you decide to buy, you don't actually pay any more. I just get a small kickback from wherever you buy them from. Now, on with the first step of the video. I decided the first thing I was going to tackle is the movement. So this is an automatic movement, so it's got a rotor on the back. It also has a hand wind function. The first thing I wanted to do with this movement is take that rotor off. It's fixed in place with that nice blue screw. As you can see, I opted for this 2416B, which is the blued screw movement. Or, well, they're probably painted, but it's something different anyway. And as I planned on putting an exhibition case back on it, I wanted to give it something nice to look at. Unfortunately, everything I tried that I would have expected to work didn't. So I tried a screwdriver, which was an eyeglass screwdriver. I tried a smaller screwdriver than that. I then tried something very dangerous, which was to use a razor blade. Even that didn't work, and I do not recommend that. It was quite dangerous, and I almost cut myself a few times. And the other thing that I tried finally, which actually worked, and again, do not try this one at home, get yourself a proper set of screwdrivers, was I took a knife and actually used the bladed edge to sit into the groove of the screw and then turned the movement to remove the screw. Again, I do not recommend that technique. It is very dangerous. It is not a smart move to do. My caveman brain decided that that was the way to go at it, but again, I would just invest in future in a set of screwdrivers, and I'm going to do that for my next build. Next step I performed, and unfortunately the camera cut out for this bit, was to remove the crown from the movement so I didn't accidentally whack it against anything and break the stem off. The movement just came with a simple brass crown, and I have a stainless steel one as part of my case, so I didn't have any use for it. I found the best thing to do was to depress the little button to remove the crown just below the 3 o'clock position on the back of the movement with a spring bar removal tool, the pointed end, not the end that you use for the end that you use for actually removing spring bars. That was the knife I used to remove the rotor. Again, do not do that. Invest in some proper screwdrivers, which I'm going to do actually after this video is made. And you can see there, that's the movement without the rotor. So it no longer will spin, which means that it should charge down. The charge should wear off. And therefore I'll be able to work on applying the hands and applying the dial without having to worry about breaking the second hand or anything like that. Next thing we're going to take a look at is this case. I picked the 020 case, or the 020. Whoop. I picked the 020 case, which is nice and resilient, thankfully, because I just dropped the bloody thing. Inside the case, you've got a little red plastic movement holder, and you've got the black bezel this one came with. I don't have any interest in keeping that bezel. However, the great thing about Vostoks is that you can easily pop the bezel off. It's just held in place with a spring. So you can see there, that's the stainless steel crown I'm going to use. It's a screw down crown, so when the movement's not in, you just simply unscrew it and slide it out and keep it for safekeeping. I'm just going to put that there next to the little plastic piece. There is our case that we're going to be using. I'm going to be changing a couple of things. I'm going to change the case back, and I'm also going to change that bezel. The black bezel is actually not bad, but I've got a couple of different ones that I'm going to use. You can use this. It's a case back removal tool for if you have a pop case back watch. Normally those will be on quartzes or on 30 meters water resistance ones. I'm actually just going to pop the spring back in because it's going to give me something to lever against when I try and take that bezel off. And it should just pop off. They're not normally that secure. They will come off with a little bit of perseverance. You just need to make sure not to A, cut the crown off, or B, cut your finger or damage the bezel too much as you get it to go. Full disclosure, this one actually put up a bit more of a fight than a lot of other ones that I've done this with. Normally these just pop right off, but this one took a little bit more perseverance. But again, if you can get it started at all, you just simply run your case back removal tool in around the outside of the bezel, in under the edge, and it just pops away. There's a little spring inside these that keeps them in place. You just put it in this little kind of edged area here, and you can pop them on and off without really damaging them too much. And the springs are almost nothing. They cost, I think it's a couple of cents really for a pack. So even if you do manage to damage a spring, you can probably just get another one. So we have a couple of bezel options. We have a blue bezel and a red bezel insert. You can see that, well, they're actually bezels, they're not even bezel inserts. I'm going to throw the red one on first just to give it a look and see what it looks like. These again should just press on. There's a spring around the inside, as you can see there, that kind of coppery color spring around the very edge. That is what keeps it in place, and also that is what stops it of turning too much and stops it from just freely spinning. If you do find your bezel is rotating too much or not enough, there's a simple way of fixing that. You just bend the spring very, very gently and just very, very little to kind of get it to accommodate you more. There's a great video, I'll drop a link down below. You can see there, I'm trying to press this one on and it's not going. So in order to do that, I must loosen the spring. And the way to do that is you simply just bend it outwards a bit more, because if you bend it outwards, you're reducing the area inside the bezel that's actually going to be in contact with the case. And what that means is that when you do this, it will actually spin a bit freer. So you can see there that that spring is quite hexagonal, and I just dropped it. So to do that, to loosen it, I just simply bend it outwards a little bit. Just a little bit. You don't want to overbend these, because if you bend them too much, you may end up snapping them. They're not the most structurally stable thing in the world. And if you want to make it tighter, you simply bend them back towards the inside of the case. This means that more of the bezel spring will be in contact with the case, which means it stops it of spinning as easy. When you're putting the spring into the bezel itself, there's actually a little groove inside. It's a very small, thin groove. It should be fairly obvious as to where it goes. And then once you have the spring lined up correctly, it should just press on with a quick press of both thumbs in place. So I'm just giving it a good solid push to see if it will go on. And you can see there, it's not quite on. You'll hear it snap into place. This one unfortunately hasn't really snapped for me, because you can see it's not really moving there for me at all. So it hasn't snapped into place, which means the spring isn't quite sitting right in the case. So a bit more pressure and this bezel has now popped on, nice and easy. False stock bezels aren't known for being excellent, but they do the job. They're not really used for dive timing, they're more for timing if you're roasting a chicken or something like that. Next thing I'm going to do with the movement is I'm actually going to pop the dial onto this one. So I'm going to give it a quick puff of air just to make sure that there is no dust lying around in the movement. Quick puff on the back as well. The dial I've gone with today is this black and gold Amphibia dial, which is really nice. You can see there that there's two little feet as well for where the movement actually sits in with the dial. Give it a quick puff of air. It's been sitting in storage for a while, so I don't want to make sure that there's any dust on the movement itself. And what happens is you simply sit this into the little dial itself. The dial feet will slot into the movement, and there is two small screws that you must unscrew on the side. We'll take care of those just right now. Again, I don't recommend you do this, but if you do it with a razor blade, you have to be so careful. I was removing the screws here on the side. Whoop, I dropped my dial. I was removing the screws on the side here. You can see that the movement now has these screws removed, and that this will just slot in with the dial feet, and it should now be nice and flat. As you can see, we'll do a side profile shot, nice and flat. Then what we need to do is we need to screw back these screws. I would recommend as well, do not remove the screws because they are tiny and you will lose them. Just unscrew them enough so that the dial sits back in and that you are able to actually screw back in the screws so that the dial is secured. So you can see here I am again screwing back in the dial, just making sure it's nice and secure with those screws, keeping the feet in place. I then used a tweezers just to fully tighten it a bit further because the razor blade was starting to bend and break. That is another extremely dangerous thing. You'll find fragments of razor blade could end up snapping and you can get caught quite badly. Again, another reason not to do it exactly the way I've done it, but to get yourself some proper screwdrivers. The tweezers I have here are just cheap pound shop ones. They've done the job for me though, and they are now, after helping me fit that dial onto that movement, and it's sitting pretty well, if I must say so myself. Once your dial's in place, you want to just put the crown back in just to make sure that the time winding function is actually working. Again, the way to do that is you simply take your little pusher and you press the button just there. Make sure that the crown is in. This one didn't engage the first time, so pop it back in. Just give it a firm but gentle enough push, and you can see there that the movement is actually running because I accidentally hand wound it. So push that in just until it's nice and secure. It should slide all the way in, and then pull it out to the time setting function, and you want to wind it forward until the date changes so that you know you're at 12 o'clock position, which means that the hands, when you go to apply them, should sit nicely at 12 o'clock and will allow the date function to change over when it's supposed to change over. Because I had accidentally hand wound mine, which is the whole reason I took the rotor off to stop the movement of actually working, I accidentally hand wound mine when I was trying to set the time, so I simply put it in a plastic bag and just keep it dust free. And what I do now is simply pull up the crown out. I'm going to re-engage the crown, which is the first thing you should make sure to do, is to make sure that the crown is actually engaged. Now that I know the movement has stopped and also that the crown is engaged, I'm going to wind it forward to midnight. As you can see there, it's changed from the 24th to the 25th. That means then that I'm in position where I can apply my hour hand, which is great. So you can see there the I wouldn't say flywheel, this isn't a car, the balance wheel or whatever it's called, I always forget what those are called, I always think it's the balance wheel, is not moving, which means that the second hand is not ticking. So give it a quick dust there, just give it a quick move away with the little, I don't know what you call those, air puffer, air duster, whatever it is. It's an AliExpress job, and it was like £2 or something like that. I've got some snowflake hands off raffles time on eBay. I'll drop a link as per usual. Obviously enough, if you haven't guessed by now, with the black and gold and the snowflake hands with the gold gilt, I'm going for a Tudor Black Bay homage with Vostok parts. So this is an exciting one for me. The Black Bay has always been an homage watch, a grail watch that I would love to get, and so far nobody makes a decent homage of it. So here's my attempt at one. So I'm just using tweezers to put on the hour hand in the 12 o'clock position there. So I would set it at 12 o'clock because you want the quick date function to tick over at 12 o'clock exactly. So you want that set. I've got the biggest nozzle on the hand presser, and you just give it a firm press down with the hole, and it should click into place nicely. The hour hand and the minute hand aren't too bad. It's always the second hand is tricky. And to test it, you need to wind the watch to make sure that it is in fact turning. Set it to the time setting position, make sure that it is turning, and turn it to 6 o'clock. The reason you put it to 6 o'clock is to give you some wiggle room as well when you're putting the minute hand on at 12 o'clock. You don't want that hand anywhere near where you're putting the pushers in case you break any of the hands or in case you damage them or bend them in any way. If I can give one piece of advice, I would say that if you're going to take your time with any part of a build, if you're following this video, make sure it is the hand pressing time. You can easily bend these hands or break them, or even just put them on in the wrong order, and then you really have to try and pull them off again, and it's just a disaster. In this case, I actually had to try and get the second hand to go on about 5 times before it really sat. The minute hand, you'll see here, goes on pretty easily. Again, just give it a push down with the second smallest nozzle and it should sit in perfectly for you. Again, a good firm press and it should click into place. And the test again is to make sure that A, it doesn't fall off. B is set it to the time position. When you wind it, it should wind as if it's a minute hand as opposed to say an hour hand or a second hand. Obviously this one doesn't have hacking because it's a Vostok movement. So you can see there it is moving back and forward nice and easy. It's not scraping over the hour hand or anything like that. So it is sitting on the pinion exactly where it should be. Last step, and again this is always the trickiest one, the second hand, you want to have your smallest nozzle in on your hand pusher, which is very important. You want to make sure that that is in place and you want it to sit down. Again, this one is a bit harder because it's not as firm a press because you don't want it to go too far. If you press the second hand too far, it will engage into the minute part and it just won't work. And I finally got mine on, but this was not an easy one to get to go on. Couple of times it was getting stuck on the minute hand because I pushed down too far and it was just a bit of a disaster. Next thing we need to do is of course put the movement into the actual case. So we need to unscrew the case back. You've seen Vostok reviews from me before. Vostoks have these individual case backs, 2 parts on it, which means that the water resistance is unaffected by the fact that you're taking it apart each time, which is a really handy thing for someone like me if you're doing a build. So it comes apart in two parts. As I say, the ring comes off first, and then you use a spring bar tool to just remove the case back. You have two parts inside, the rubber ring, which is the gasket to make sure water doesn't come in through the back, and you have this red plastic movement holder. Full disclosure with this one, again, the red plastic movement holder, you're supposed to screw it over you're supposed to use the screws on the movement to place it into the holder. I unfortunately brute forced it and pushed it over, and I think I bent the movement holder. So just give it a quick dust, make sure you don't have anything on the inside. I'm giving it a quick clean as well with my finger. Give it a quick dust again, just to make sure that you don't have any fingerprints or smudges or anything, which is why I'm wearing these gloves as well. So you don't want any fibers, you don't want any fingerprints, you don't want anything like that. Just gently drop it in, and you want to make sure that that movement lines up first of all with the crown section, which is the most important thing, and also that it lines up in the dial and it's actually straight and lines up with the bezel. You don't want to have yourselves the Seiko situation where the bezel doesn't line up with the dial. The Seiko situation actually sounds like a Tom Clancy movie or something, like The Sum of All Fears or The Hunt for Red October. The Seiko situation. Yeah, they're famous for their misaligned bezels, and I wasn't trying to make my little Vostok Black Bay join that club. You can see there, it's sitting in quite nicely, and it is in place pretty straight, if I do say so myself. It's not too bad there. And, oh, my little nozzle fell off there. But this one is actually pretty straight. So I've got the bezel lined up, I've got the hands working, I've got the fact that it's ticking away happily. This is going better than I could have thought, to be quite honest with you. And of course, now that I've said it's going better than I thought, I have to make a mess of this. So I make two errors here in the video. The first one of which is I decide that the ideal thing to do right now is to pop the rotor back on, which is correct. There's nothing wrong with that. And I use my usual very dangerous technique of the pointed end of the knife that I have. Again, get yourself some screwdrivers, because you will either, if you make any mistake at all when you're doing that, you will end up shearing off and hitting a spring or a cog or something, and you would break it. Also, for the love of God, keep that screw safe, because if you lose it, you will never get another one unless you go back to Meranom or Commandersky to get another one. You'll have to buy another one off them. You can see there, I'm just putting the knife in place, and I'm just turning the entire case and movement to make sure that the screw goes back down and is secure. You want that reasonably tight as well, because otherwise that rotor is going to wobble and hit the case back, and it's going to A, damage the rotor, and B, make an awful noise inside in the watch. And we're trying to make a classy looking Homage here, and we don't want a load of rotor wobble on this as well. So just readjust that dial. Now the next mistake I make, of course, is for the first time I did this, I give it a little air puff. But the first mistake I made for this one was I decided I was going to put the case back on, and I cut that piece. So you can see me now, I actually remembered in this point to put the gasket in. So this watch is 200 meters water resistance, but only if you put the bloody gasket in. Because otherwise you would have had, I don't know how much water resistance, but probably not a whole lot. You would have just had a metal case back and nothing protecting the movement. Honestly, sometimes I do wonder about myself. So I've pressed the gasket back in just using the tweezers, nice and gentle. Again, make sure it's nice and flat and even going around the outside, because the more even it is, the easier it's going to be for that case back to press down on it and to compress, giving you that 200 meters of water resistance. Quick puff for the air puffer again. You don't want dust and you don't want particles or fingerprints in underneath your dial, especially not when I have got an exhibition case back. I paid extra money for the Vostok 2416B, which stands for blue. You got that blue screws. The Vostok might not be the prettiest movement in the world, but with the blue screws it gives you a little bit of colour. And to be honest, I was just like, you know what, if I'm building a watch, I'm going to build one with an exhibition case back, whether it's an ugly movement or not, or whether it's a bit, utilitarian, it doesn't matter. I'm putting a bloody exhibition case back on this. This is my watch, it's my baby. It's going to be shown off a little bit. And here it is out on my wrist. I cannot believe how cool this thing looks. I've got it on this red Tudor style NATO single pass strap I got from JC Watches. I'll drop a link down below. Oh my god, and here it is on a Watch Gecko red leather strap. This is probably the only watch I've got that will actually suit this red leather strap, but I'm doing the voiceovers now in post, and I'm absolutely in love with this thing on the video. I've got it on the blue now, and the blue NATO with that kind of cream stripe down it, and I'm lost for words. This thing is so class to me. I cannot express how much I love this watch now. I've got it on this deployant as well. I got from WatchGecko. It just gives you so much. Like, this is the closest homage I've actually seen to a Tudor Black Bay, but it's still its own thing. It's a Vostok. It's not a direct one-for-one homage, and I love the fact that it still has those Vostok characteristics. So guys, there you have it, a video diary of sorts of me building my very first watch. Honestly, I think these are like children. It may not be perfect, but it always looks perfect to you. Yes, I made mistakes with it. The hand is now semi-skeletonized on the minute hand because I damaged it. The dial is tilted a little bit, but I wouldn't change a thing about it. Guys, thank you so much for watching as well. You're a trooper for making it through the video. Thanks so much for subscribing in your droves and using the AliExpress affiliate links. I've been your host, TK. This has been the Watchtower Watch Reviews, and I will see you guys next time.